Stunning graphics, a beautiful and compelling story, well-written characters, hundreds and thousands of cool skins to throw away every dollar you've ever made away on. None of these things matter to me, or at least none of these things matter to me as much as the gameplay. Now before I start hearing bombs being dropped on my house, I am not saying that these things are null and void and do not add to a game or improve on it, because they do. But answer this question for me. Consider your favorite game, whether it be a great story game like Red Dead Redemption 2, or summer-colored high school adolescent record, a summer at school on an island where I contemplate how the first day after I transferred I ran into a childhood friend and was forced to join the journalism club, where my days as a paparazzi kid with great scoops made me rather popular among the girls, but strangely my camera is full of panty shots and where my candid romance is going. Would you still love that game as much if it played like this? No. You fucking wouldn't. If I start playing a game and it feels like I'm trying to move a giant ass rock up a fucking hill, I'm closing that shit and heading straight to the glorious Steam refund page. Now, I am exaggerating, but it honestly isn't that far off. If I do not like the feel of a game within at least the first 30 minutes to an hour, I will most likely never finish that game. And yes, it does not matter if it has the greatest story to grace the silver screen. I do not care. If the gameplay feels like absolute mud, then I'll grow to hate it. The gameplay should always come first, and be the part that feels the most polished in a game, not the drop-dead gorgeous graphics that make my pants fall down and my GPU want to drop dead. Because I'm a little hungry right now, let's just say that a game is like a pizza, with the gameplay acting as the base of the pizza. If you remove the base of a pizza, or the base of the pizza is shit, then the whole pizza's shit, or doesn't even exist. I don't know where this analogy came from. The soul, the very fundamentals of a video game, is its mechanics. Whether it be the movement, the gameplay, or simply the way your character jumps. These are the bare bones of every video game, and without some of these basic mechanics, you're not even playing a video game. The game mechanics, for the most part, are the part of a game that can make it entirely unique to its own genre. Take a basic 2D platformer like the first Super Mario Bros. You can walk or run left or right, and if you press this little button here, Mario will jump. This is the most basic form of a 2D platformer, of which every 2D platformer afterwards has stemmed from. Now look at a more recent 2D platformer, like Celeste. Just looking at 10 seconds of this gameplay, you can immediately see that while the core mechanics of a traditional 2D platformer are present here, there are much more mechanics added on that make this game entirely unique within the genre. Now imagine you trying to play a game like Celeste and Mario, but the controls just don't make sense, are super unresponsive, or super muddy. You wouldn't play that game. Because even if it does have a unique idea or interesting mechanics, they're executed poorly and just are overall unsatisfying to use. Now, I will be using a game as an example that may get me hunted down, lynched in the streets, and tortured until I draw my last breath. But I did not enjoy the gameplay of God of War 2018. Yeah, I know. But Io Cooler won Game of the Year. How could you not like the gameplay? And to you, dear viewer, I say, have you seen what won Game of the Year in 2016? I'm sorry, but how did fucking Overwatch beat these fucking games? I'm still appalled. I'm fucking flabbergasted by this, and it's 8 years later. But I'm getting off topic. Though the gameplay of the new God of War did not entirely make me want to pull out my own teeth, it often felt a little slow and unresponsive. But all that aside, I did get very far into the game, and saw Kratos flip a mountain or something like he just lost his 5th competitive game of the night.
I'm fucking killing this Hanzo, whether it's the last thing I do.
I can't feel weirdo, get on payload!
Which I believe was near the end of the game, but I just lost interest. To be fair, the only thing that was keeping me going originally anyway, was I was playing the game in tandem with one of my friends, and he happened to beat the game a little bit before me. Which entirely caused me to just lose interest and never play it again. But honestly, my main grievances with the game is that all of its budget went entirely into other aspects of the game, leaving the enemy variation to the wayside. This is why we end up fighting like 10 trolls or something, but who's counting? A lot of the gameplay was very repetitive while being completely held up by the narrative that they were aiming to tell instead. Which does work for a lot of games like Telltale and that, but compare this to the original God of War games. Combat in those games just feels so much smoother, whereas in this game it feels like I'm fighting Kratos more than I'm fighting the actual enemies of the game, which was a very frustrating experience. Now, I know I've just been bagging on the game, but the story was truly excellent. It was very intriguing to see where Kratos has gone after the events of God of War 3, seeing him more morally improved with a new child that he's not trying to fucking get the fuck away from. As someone who grew up on the original God of War on the PS2, while the new God of War did have a better narrative than the games I grew up on, as I stated earlier, the combat in the original games just felt so much better to me. And as much as it might sound like I'm choking up to nostalgia, just before I started God of War 2018, I played through all of God of War 3 to relive those sweet, murderous, and psychopathic childhood memories. And I had a fucking blast! While Kratos himself was mainly just a buff screaming Greek dude for about 15 hours hellbent on murdering as many motherfuckers as he could. And the story's alright, the combat just absolutely kept me hooked. Maybe I just like hack and slashes, I know they're not for everyone, I've heard a lot of people don't like them. But I feel like my main gripes with the game can just be narrowed down to how slow and unresponsive Kratos feels with every attack, and the severe lack in enemy variation throughout the game. Quick Google search shows me that I'm not the only one who feels this opinion, but then again, all my sources came from Reddit threads, so maybe I am the fool. Now, I know I did just shit all over 2018's Game of the Year winner, despite Red Dead Redemption 2 being right there and being the better game, but now, since there's no one here to argue with me, I'm just gonna argue with myself. There are a few games that I have played and enjoyed, I know, shocking, where the gameplay is either not good or did not exist. Some examples of games like this are Doki Doki, Deadly Premonition, Only Cans, Before Your Eyes, The Stanley Parable, and every other walking simulator that passes as a horror game. But there is one game in particular that I want to call out for this point, and that is a little game called The Beginner's Guide. Even its description on Steam, it specifically states, it lasts about an hour and a half, has no traditional mechanics, no goals or objectives. But this quote-unquote game is one of the best games I've ever played. This game is specifically meant to be more of an experience, and holy shit, is it a fucking experience. If you've never seen anything about The Beginner's Guide or ever heard of it, it's created by the guy who made The Stanley Parable, and it's more in the vein of like Before Your Eyes if you've played that, with the way that it just tells its story and you barely interact with that story despite walking. You don't walk in Before Your Eyes, I don't know why this point is in the fucking script. But the way it uses its deliberately limited mechanics as a way to craft a one-of-a-kind story that hits way deeper than it should is nothing short of goddamn incredible. Please, if you have the time and can spare under $20 for this unforgettable 1.5 hour experience, do yourself a favor and play this game. It's literally shorter than the time required for you to refund it on Steam, so if you don't like it, just fucking refund it. The emotions that this game stirred up in me was like nothing I'd experienced in a game before. Yes, there's been games that have had me weeping like a little bitch.
I want to see my nephew. No!
But nothing has gotten a deeper emotional response touching my black, shriveled up heart than this game here. Though the quote-unquote gameplay of this game does exactly what it aims to do and gets its story across to the player, it never feels irritating or sluggish. It feels more like a digital museum than a proper game. Now that I'm done jacking off Davey Wendon, how did I fucking say his name? Redden?
Davey Redden.
For his genius, let's return back to the title of this video. Why is gameplay the most important part of a game? Do I even need to spell it out? Video games are inherently games. I know, I'm a fucking genius. At their absolute core, they are played for enjoyment and to periodically escape your crushing real life, transporting you into a digital world where you can pop Hitler's testicle with a sniper, or even have a prostitute shake their shit all over your virtual dick before blowing their brains out. In recent years especially, video games have proven that they can show off a deep and compelling story on par with some great movies, but all of this should come second to the enjoyment you get from playing the game. The games that FromSoftware make encapsulates my thoughts on this perfectly. Though the first Dark Souls is a little clunky compared to the silky smooth feel of the later games, it still controls really well and has some amazing gameplay which has been influential enough to spawn its own subgenre. Now let's take a look at the black sheep of the series, Dark Souls 2. The controls, despite being the same as Dark Souls 1, somehow feels clunkier. Hitting an enemy with a weapon feels like you're trying to hit air. And sometimes when you get hit, there's just no response from the character, leading you to not even know you got hit. And don't even get me started on dodge rolling in this game. All my homies fucking despise adaption. Like, look at this shit. What is the point of dodging if I'm just gonna get fucking hit anyway? But I digress. Anyone with a functioning brain can see that the gameplay of this game is what drags it down so much. Because this game has a pretty intriguing story if you look past the terrible gameplay. But when I played through it for the first time, I just couldn't look past the subpar gameplay to even appreciate the narrative that was being drip-fed to me. Though there is something unique about the Soulsborne series, which is that you can go through the entire game, have a blast, without even paying attention to its narrative, despite the stories in this game often being really good. Am I saying that every game should do this? Absolutely not. But I love that the gameplay is very clearly thought of first, and the devs didn't just spend years writing this complex story before realizing, oh shit, we have to make this into an actual fucking video game. All I ask for from a game is that after I finish it, I stand up from my couch, sweat patch in my ass crack, and walk away from it thinking, damn, that was a good time. But then again, fuck my opinion. Now I want you to think about this for a second. Not everyone has the time to sit down and get immersed into a long, convoluted story. Some people just want to come home from work and play some of their favorite games and have a good time in the very limited time frame that they have. There's this little trend happening in the gaming sphere right now that I, for one, do not fuck with, which is this constant battle for better and better graphics. Every game apparently needs to have these stunning graphics that most people with a normal console or PC can't even run at their max potential without their frame rate suffering or their console of choice bursting into fucking flames. Have you ever wondered why every game that comes out now is almost 100 gigabytes or more? It's because, as stated in this TechSpots article, yeah, we're fucking referencing now, indeed, today's games are vastly more detailed than those from nearly 2 decades ago, and we're playing them at higher resolutions as well. Therefore, environments, character models, and visual effects all use assets that are both larger in size and more numerous. This battle for better graphics between game studios is not only a battle for who has the better looking game, but for who can take up the most amount of space on the consumer's hard drive. This is why when you go back and load up an older game, it barely takes up any space on your hard drive. But if you install a newer game like Dragon's Dogma 2, its file size is 64 gigabytes. This file size, funny enough, is considered small in the current gaming ecosystem, with online magazines like Esports Illustrated saying that gamers have been surprised to find out that Dragon's Dogma 2 is just 64.391 gigabytes. Let that sink in. Just 64 gigabytes. If you have only 1 terabyte of storage on your console, even though you don't even actually get 1 terabyte, that is 15% of your hard drive being taken up by this only 64.391 gigabyte game. That means you could only have 6.6 games of this size on your console. While it is great to see that games look really good now and are super realistic, these impressive graphics also take a massive toll on the storage space on consoles and PCs alike. Have you experienced the scene I'm about to describe? You get home from a long day at work or school and have just purchased a new game that you're very excited to play. Put this disc in for the first time and see that the game is going to take 4 fucking hours to install. This means you can't even play it that night, or you only get to play it for way less time than you originally planned to. It's a pretty frustrating experience, isn't it? This constant quest for the best graphics has also proven to make the gameplay suffer, leading to the game being an overall disappointment. Look at Cyberpunk 2077. Though it is a good game, at release, if you fucking remember that, the game was a fucking mess. But at least it looked good, right? I'm not saying that the graphics were the sole cause for all the bugs that the game was plagued with at launch, though it is a great example for the point I'm trying to make. Now compare this to games like Hollow Knight or Cuphead. These games both have super unique art choice, with every detail of both these games being drawn entirely by hand, which is fucking crazy. And not only that, but the gameplay of these games is also super smooth. To me, these two games are a perfect example that while realism in a game can work and be great, incredible art direction just does that little extra sometimes. At the time of writing this part of the script, it's almost been a year since I started writing this. And in that year, my angle on this topic has shifted a little bit. Video games are a super unique medium. The stories that video games are able to tell can be so powerful because they have that extra level about them that other media forms just can't tap into. This extra level I'm talking about is the immersion. When you play a good game, you can get lost in it and feel as though you are a part of the experience. You yourself bond with these characters, discover more about this lost world you find yourself in, and get the fucking tits scared off you. Think of a game like Persona 5 or anything in the Persona series. In this game, you can actively choose to learn more about these characters by asking your own questions, which is something that most other media forms just can't replicate, or replicate to the level that video games can. I believe now that yes, gameplay is a very important factor, and is still probably the most important factor, but creative intent can change this. Some games are meant to play like shit. That is the intention. I found an interesting Reddit thread by user Alternative Device 38 titled, "Games with Intentionally Bad Mechanics." In this thread, various users talk about games that they have played that either have bad gameplay overall, or one aspect of the game is clunky, but have a creative reason behind it. User Ben... I can't pronounce this without sounding racist, mentions that in the game, Night in the Woods, the rhythm segments in the game are purposely clunky and slightly off to symbolize how the protagonist May really is both out of practice and kinda bad at playing bass. These sorts of ideas are so cool and unique, but even though its mechanics are bad, they're still fulfilling their intended purpose. So in a way, are the mechanics really bad? We all got into gaming for roughly the same reason. Not the storytelling or the graphics or whatever the fuck this is. It was the fun that we had. Sure, now it might be different and what we're looking for in a game may have changed from back then. But still, at the core of it all, even if the gameplay isn't what draws me into a game, in the end, it's what solidifies my enjoyment. And isn't that all that matters? That we enjoy the games we play? Thank you so much for watching to the end of this. I really hope you enjoyed it. This was my first proper attempt at a video essay, and I do plan on doing more in the future, so leave a like if you enjoyed it, and in the comments just let me know where I can improve on this. Hopefully the next one won't take as long as this one did to make. So I'll catch you in the next one, and thank you so much for watching.